Abraham Lincoln. No other president more completely evokes America. No other American seems so clearly to characterize our national identity. Lincoln is imprinted in our history, our literature, our image of what it is to be American. A historic figure who continues to loom in our minds, brooding, heroic, and tragic, tempered in the fires of our nation's most bitter conflict. The great emancipator, an American martyr. But there is another side to Lincoln, a shrewd, well-liked politician, a husband, a father, a prairie town lawyer. He walked and rode the city streets of Springfield, Illinois. Here he lived with his wife Mary and their sons in the only home he ever owned. This is not the story of the Lincoln of myth and monuments. This is the story of a home and of a family, the Lincolns of Springfield, Illinois. At the corner of 8th and Jackson stands the home of Abraham and Mary Lincoln. It was here, in 1860, that Lincoln received word he'd been elected president of a nation poised on the brink of civil war. In 1972, the state of Illinois turned the Lincoln home over to the National Park Service. Under the Park Service's supervision, the entire 4-block historic area was slowly transformed into a 19th century residential neighborhood, a prelude to the most extensive restoration and preservation effort ever undertaken on the home of an American president. From a distance, the Lincoln House did not show its age, but closer examination revealed the truth. Years of exposure to heat, wind, rain, snow, insects, all had taken their toll. The structural stability of the home was also threatened. It had been built to house a family, not to withstand the traffic of over 500,000 visitors walking through it each year. For over a decade, the Park Service had planned and prepared for work on the Lincoln home. Now, the moment was at hand. For the first time in more than a century, the front door was closed to visitors, the symbolic start of a 13-month effort costing over $2 million to protect the Lincoln home for future generations. Before work began, furnishings were removed for storage and for repair at the Harper's Ferry Center of the National Park Service in West Virginia. Although not apparent to a layman, many of the details in various rooms of the home were not authentic. What added to the ambition of the project was a determination not only to preserve the house, but to restore it faithfully and exactingly to the way it was when Abraham Lincoln and his family lived there. In June of 1987, the Park Service began taking the home apart to make it ready for the major tasks of restoration and preservation.
Preservation and restoration are quite often confused. A lot of people feel they generally mean the same thing, but if you analyze the two terms, preservation is a fancy word for maintenance, and it may be maintenance of an entire structure or maintenance of a piece of fabric, the repair and gluing of and stripping of a piece of siding. Restoration, on the other hand, is accurately returning a property to a particular point in time.
The particular time decided on for this restoration was 1860, the year Lincoln was elected president. In that year, the house became a president's home and was photographed, sketched, and commented on in newspapers of the day. These old photos and drawings were indispensable to the restorers. Returning the home to its 1860 appearance was a massive undertaking. Over the years, custodians and trustees appointed by the state of Illinois had repaired, patched, remodeled, and modernized the home, All of these changes were meant to honor the memory of Abraham Lincoln, but some of them were historically inaccurate. River City Restorations, a company from Hannibal, Missouri, specializing in historic preservations, was largely responsible for work on the house and grounds. Inside the home, the task of preservation was nearly complete. The preoccupation now was with the precise details of restoration. Every decision about color, design, materials, furnishings was made on the basis of painstaking research. For example, when the Lincolns added the full second floor to their home in the mid-1850s, they used pine lumber shipped into Springfield on the new Midwest rail lines. The machine-cut lumber in standard sizes made construction much simpler, but pine was not considered a particularly attractive wood. To make it more pleasing, it was grained or painted to resemble richer woods like oak or mahogany, a technique duplicated by the restoration's craftsmen. The French wallpaper in Lincoln's bedroom was another example of detective work followed by scrupulous reproduction. A small section of this wallpaper had been preserved under a protective panel of glass during the years the home was open to the public. It was the home's only surviving piece of original wallpaper. When the work of restoration began, the brittle paper was carefully stripped from the wall by a wallpaper conservator working with the Park Service. Later, it would be taken for further examination to her laboratory near the Park Service's Harper's Ferry Center. For more than 125 years, this paper had adorned the wall of Lincoln's bedroom, but it had become soiled and discolored by time and various protective finishes, and sunlight had faded and blurred the colors. At the laboratory, one of the most exciting discoveries of the project was made.
So I took the paper off, brought it back here, and then I washed it on my air suction table. And when I did that, the top piece of this, there was another piece of paper over this, loosened and came off almost perfectly. I mean, it came off without lifting most of the paint with it, which is often a problem removing layers of wallpaper.
This single square foot of original design and color was more evidence than the Park Service ever dreamed of having. The reproduced wallpaper could now appear just as the Lincolns had seen it. Next came the task of recreating that paper in every detail, from the square foot of original that had been unearthed. The job was given to Bradbury & Bradbury, a California company specializing in Victorian papers. The elaborate original design was carefully copied, but Bradbury & Bradbury would forego the tedious 19th century block printing technique artisans had used to create the original wallpaper. Instead, a modern silkscreen process was used to duplicate the Lincoln wallpaper colors, some bold and brilliant, others muted and subtle. As layer upon layer of color was applied, the intricate floral pattern took on depth and luster. A recently discovered newspaper account of a reporter's visit to the Lincoln home confirmed a Park Service suspicion that Mary used the same wallpaper in her bedroom as she did in her husband's. The wallpaper told Park Service personnel a great deal about Mary Lincoln's taste and guided them in their selection of other papers. The President-elect and his family left Springfield on February 11, 1861. His final words to a small gathering of friends and neighbors foreshadow his martyr's death.
My friends, no one not in my situation can appreciate my feeling of sadness at this parting. To this place and the kindness of these people, I owe everything. Here I have lived a quarter of a century, and have passed from a young to an old man. Here my children have been born, and one is buried. I now leave, not knowing when or whether ever I may return. I bid you an affectionate farewell.